what is up, everybody? So I want you to think about where you are in life. I want you to think about any conflict that you're holding on to. And I want you to think about something that you need to let go of, which is probably a big reason why you joined this group. So take just a minute here. I'll give you just a minute. And I want you to think about those few things. You can write them down in your notes. You can just think about them in your head. You can write them in the chat. But I want you to think about maybe something or some things. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a friendship. Maybe it is, something that you need to let go in your marriage. Maybe it's past hurt. Maybe it is a job that you're just like, this is not serving my heart and my soul any longer. Whatever it might be, I want you to think about that, and I want you to write that down, and I'll give you about 30 more seconds to kind of get that in your mind. Okay, so now that you've got it, let's talk about number one and what our very first step is in kind of honing in on maybe some heavy stuff in our life. The very first thing is that we need and must acknowledge. This is so important. You're like, okay, I get it. I know. I already know what's happening. I acknowledge. We're going to dive just a little bit deeper. So acknowledging is actually, the definition is to recognize, it's to agree that it's happening. So I want you to think about that. So maybe, let me give you an example. If somebody sends you a gift, how do you acknowledge that you got that gift? You could say thank you. You could, if you're in person, you could give a smile. Or another example could be if you're sending a thank you note, how does that person acknowledge that they received it? They would say back to you, I got your note. Thank you for the note. Or if you're in person, maybe they hug you. That's an acknowledgement. It's also an agreement of what you are in front of. Okay. So I want you to think about that for a second. The first and foremost step is acknowledging. It's agreeing that you have something that is stuck and that you have something that needs work or to let go of or to understand or to work through. So wherever you're at in that journey, okay, you must agree that it is there first before you can work through it, before you can understand it, before it can not control you and be like this weed that's growing all over you, okay? So part of that is just agreeing to what is true, and then also to understand and knowing and agreeing that there's been a shift, right? There's been this change. For example, 2 years ago, when I went through my shift, when I went through my change, I needed to acknowledge that my business, my way of life, my income was shut down due to a pandemic. Okay. Trust me, I know it sounds crazy, but there was a lot of me that wanted to ignore what was going on. I also needed to acknowledge where I was at because I just had a baby. I was freaking out about what was going on in the world, but I needed to acknowledge and agree that that's what was going on. I also needed to understand, agree, almost appreciate, and acknowledge that my husband filed for divorce when my daughter was 2 months old. Our daughter was 2 months old. Okay. All of those things happening. If you have any sort of personality like me, what you want to do is lift up the rug, take a broom and sweep, 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 and then push down the rug and pretend it's not there. Woo! Raise your hand if you're so good at that. Me, I am. Okay, so guess what happens when we do that? It doesn't go anywhere. It stays under the rug. And then when you go to move to like a different home, or you go to take the next chapter in your life, or you slip or you trip over the rug, guess what happens? It gets lifted up, and then you're reminded of all the dirt and the stuff and the things, and you go, shoot, I kind of thought it was gone. It's not. It's still there. So if we do not want to take a broom, no brooms anymore. We want to stare at the stuff. We want to agree and go, yes, there it is. There's my conflict. There is what I'm struggling with. There is what I need to let go of. There is my goal that I need to crush. Wherever you are, you need to acknowledge it. Also, accept it. Yeah, such a big thing. Here's my quote for you. Are you ready for this? You need to write this down. Stop resisting and find the lesson. Here's what I want you to imagine. I'm so big on imagery. Have you ever gone? Okay, when I was younger, we used to go to my grandma and grandpa's trailer up at Lincoln Lake, up north, Grand Rapids. And we used to have these really huge, like giant family reunions. I have so many cousins on my mom's side. She has so many cousins, and they all lived at Lincoln Lake. That's where my mom grew up. So we would have these giant family reunions. And one of the stations and games that we would have as a kid is there was like this giant stack of hay. And we had to go into the hay and find these little tiny safety pins. Have you ever done that before? It seems while you're in it and while you're digging, like near impossible, because a safety pin is like so tiny. It's so tiny. And here's the catcher. Here's the catch of that. It feels the same. Like it has the same texture as the hay. So I never forget that game. I've done it with my kids and it's so fun to watch. But while you're in it, it's quite frustrating. It's quite frustrating to dig your arms in. I mean, I remember I would just be arms deep in there. And you guys, if you know anything about me, you know I'm super competitive. So I am just like, I'm trying to win this thing, you know? So I'm diving in and you are just grabbing and searching and coming up. And you might kind of go like this with some hay. And you might not even see it because, you know, the safety pins are silver. And then whoever had the most safety pins won a prize. Okay, that's what I want you to think about with the stuff that you are staring at, that you are acknowledging. Instead of taking a broom and sweeping it under the rug, okay, and this doesn't have to be like something negative in your life, you know what I mean? It can be your goals. Maybe your goals have just been sitting there and sitting there and sitting there, and you're like, why? Why am I staring at my goals and I'm just not doing anything about it? Okay. Instead of taking your goals and going, I'll never achieve those. Maybe I should make some new ones. Maybe those aren't just right for me. I don't know. Maybe I just don't want to do that anymore. No. Pull them back out, stare directly at them, dive your arms in and find the safety pins. Okay. Find the lesson, find the drive, find the want of what is there, the lesson to be learned, and stop resisting. Stop resisting and find the lesson. That is like my it was like my 2021 quote. And oh my goodness, you guys, when you start thinking that way, what will start to happen is your mindset will shift. So in the 5-day challenge, we talked a ton about mindset. And what starts to happen when you think like, oh my gosh, there's all this hay. Okay, you're in all this hay and you're just like, oh, it's irritating. It's like getting stuck on my flannel and like it's like dusty and I have allergies and I can't breathe. And like, you know, I'm not even like finding any safety pins anyways. Like, what am I even doing here? Yeah. But you keep digging. And if you think as you're diving into that hay, you think, okay, what am I actually looking for? And you slowed down and you took the time and you used your senses, right? To kind of feel, understand, and slow down and breathe and look for those safety pins. That's where I want you to be. You're using everything that you've got, your vision, your listening skills, slowing down, your words, your heart, maybe your body. If you're like me, like my body is always set into motion with all of the goals that I plan and with everything that I do. If I'm mentally up here, not in a good mindset, I physically have a really hard time to do any sort of workout, to get up in the morning. Like it affects what we do, right? For me, that's work. Like my body is work. So I need to make sure my mindset is clear. So as you start to travel into this, you're going to find as you start understanding, right here, understanding what is before you, you're going to start to really look, right? Like you're on purpose. Okay. So have you ever gone through life where you're walking through and it's like, or you drive somewhere and you get there and you're like, I don't even know how I got here. You're like on autopilot. Have you ever lived life that way? Have you ever lived on autopilot? Just everything that you're doing is second nature and you just go, 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 go. Yeah, me too. We're not going to autopilot this year. We're going to understand what we've got going on. We're going to understand, okay, there's a giant thing of hay and I'm going to find those safety pins. So we are not going to resist. We are not going to turn our backs. We are not going to grab a broom. We are not going to sweep anything under the rug. We are going to crush everything that is before us, and whatever that is that it looks like to you, that's where we're at. We're accepting if it's dirt, maybe it's mud. Maybe it's just pouring rain, wherever it is. Maybe it's just a pile of all sorts of nonsense. Maybe it's a pile of goals that you just keep piling up and you're like, go, 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 go. And then you're just like, why am I in the same place? Like, why am I not even doing anything with these goals, right? So, yeah, we're going to start accepting all of that and like what is going on, right? We're knowing that there has been a change and a shift, meaning you're here, you invested in yourself. That's a change. That's a shift. You're now ready to get going. You're now ready to step forward. And here's how we're going to do it. So let's look at and dive into what accepting and acknowledging and knowing a little bit more of like those steps that we actually kind of like what that means and where we're headed. Let me ask you a question. If you take a pull trick that has maybe been your nemesis, or maybe a pull trick that you learned, or maybe like a hobby that you learned, or something that maybe took you a little while to learn, okay, whatever it might be. If you don't have an example, I want you to picture a toddler, or maybe, no, let's take maybe like learning how to walk, okay? So think of something in your life, if you can, that's taking you a little bit to learn. Okay, now I want you to think, if you knew everything at the end of that journey about that pull trick, or about understanding of like how that thing that took you a long time to learn, right? Do you ever go through the process and you go, oh, yeah, we've all done that with something. If you could take all of this and make it go faster, and bring all of it into the beginning, and you can learn that pull trick in a day, would you do it? Yeah, I would. I would learn how to do something way faster than it taking like a long time for me to learn. Okay, it could be maybe it's taking you a long time to acknowledge that you are really bad at acknowledging. That's a thing. That was a thing for me in the last 2 years of like, I don't want to acknowledge that my life is literally going to crap right now and falling to pieces. Okay. But I did. I had to in order to survive. And what started to happen is I started to see a shift to go, okay, this sucks. And I had to feel those feelings of this sucks. I don't like to feel those ucky feelings. I don't like to feel like I haven't achieved my goals. I don't like to feel like I failed. Yeah. So as I started to travel through this process, I then started to understand and accept and know, okay, there's been a shift. There's some stuff that's happened in my life. I've got to acknowledge, I've got to get into this hay, I've got to slow down, and I've got to try to find these safety pins. I've got to figure out what the lesson is inside of here. Okay. Now what starts to happen is this. Or if you can imagine a veil being lifted, when you accept and you acknowledge, what starts to happen is you start to see. Then you start to understand. Then you can start to commit. Then you can start to walk. You can make a plan. Then you can follow the plan. Then you can achieve. And achieve can mean let go, hit a goal. You know what I mean? Achieve can really mean anything that you're walking through. Does that make sense? So I want you to think of something. I want you to think of something that this maybe resonates with you right now. So at the beginning of this video, if you couldn't think of anything, I want you to think of something that's resonating with you right now, and that's going to tie into our homework. Okay, here's a quote that I really, really love that I want to share with you. Of course, there is no formula for success, except perhaps an unconditional acceptance of life and what it brings. And that is by Arthur Rubinstein. So let me read it one more time. Of course, there is no formula for success, except perhaps an unconditional acceptance of life and what it brings. So many of us want to go through life and we don't want anything, like we just don't want anything to happen. We want everything to be good all the time. In a perfect world, we would achieve all of our goals all the time. We would never have any yuckiness to work through. We'd never have to let anything go. We'd be happy all the time, right? Okay, that's not what life is about. It's about the acceptance of life and what it brings. Maybe it's raining in your life right now. Maybe it is so sunshiny, but you just can't figure out, like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? I can't get going. Yeah. Maybe somebody gave you an answer that you weren't looking for. Have you ever been in a relationship, or have you ever been broken up with? I have, so somebody, you're in a relationship for 3 years and that person wants to break up and you don't have a choice other than to accept what it is that they said, what it is that their response to you is. So you have to have that acceptance of life in order to be able to continue to move forward. Yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep working through this to wrap this up. And then I'm going to give you some homework. Okay, so we need to develop the habit of looking at whatever is before us with that positive mindset. And we talked a ton about this during the 5-day challenge of that positive mindset. If you don't have a positive mindset, yowzas, okay? Like it is so, so, so important. Let me share with you maybe an example of something that you could relate to. Okay, you're going along in life. You're like, everything's good. I'm feeling so great. It's so amazing. Boom, you get hit by a boulder. Boom, you don't hit that goal. Boom, something different happens in their life than what you had planned. It's going to happen to all of us. Yeah. Okay, here come your thoughts, right? Here come your thoughts of, I'm not good enough. I don't belong here. I can't do this. I don't know why I set that goal. It's probably too high. My skills aren't there. I don't belong in this community. I'm never going to be loved. All of these things. You need to get out of your head. I talked about this book in the 5-day challenge, but it's a must read. You have to. It's called Get Out of Your Head by Jenny Allen. You need to get out of your head. Those are, okay, those are valid feelings. Yeah. They're valid feelings that you have. So do not get rid of the feelings. Hold on to the feelings and say, okay, here is what I am feeling. Accept that those are the feelings that you have. Accept that, okay, I did not hit that goal. Accept, you know what, this is really crummy in my life right now. Accept, like, crap, I gotta do something about this situation. Accept that you're hurting. Accept all of those things. Because when you accept it, now you can deal with it. So all of those thoughts that are now pulling into your mind, you can start to go, like, if you can imagine, like, they're starting. Oh my gosh, I'm thinking of like an Atari game. Who even like remembers what Atari was? Remember them? Like, that's what we did, was like Atari. It's like I show it to Xander and he can't even last like 2 seconds watching it because he plays Fortnite. I'm like, yeah, this is like what we used to do. And it's like, okay, maybe a little bit of a faster Atari coming at you. So stuff flying, Space Invaders. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Space Invaders coming at you. So all these negative thoughts. And now what happens is, because you've accepted, you can go, that is actually not true. And you can throw it away. And then you can take another one. So I am not good enough. Nope, that's what I'm feeling. I'm accepting that I'm feeling that, but I know the truth to that. Yeah, I know the truth to that. And I know that it's not true. So I'm grabbing it and I'm throwing it away. You will never be loved. You go through a breakup, you will never be loved. You are accepting that that is how you're feeling so that you can grab that and say, that is not true. Then you find the truth in that and then you throw it away. I'll never, all of those thoughts. So yeah, so if you can kind of imagine like all those coming in, you have to accept them, because if you don't accept them, here's what happens. Stays. It just sits here. It sits here. How many of you overanalyze? Ding, ding, ding. Me. Yeah, just stays here. We don't want that. We need to keep moving. And that's why a positive mindset is so, so important. Read that book. It's so good. Okay, so when we do that, you guys, you're just going to be happier. You're going to be more peaceful. Here's something else I recently heard that, oh my gosh, just really resonated with me. So a lot of times, as like, if you're a go-getter, if you're like a goal setter, if you are just a driven person, I am. Here's another thing that we have to accept and acknowledge. Like for me, something I've really had to acknowledge over the past 2 years is really acknowledging and understanding how much masculine energy I have. Okay, which means, here's what I mean by that. I want to make things happen, right? So like I'm like a maker and I'm a doer, and like I enjoy seeing results. And it's like if I don't have this tangible results, I tend to get really restless and annoyed and impatient and all the things. Yeah. And then my mind starts going crazy and I got to deal with all that. So here's something I've really had to acknowledge and understand that's before me that I've really needed to let go. And that's my masculine energy. I've had to tap into my feminine energy. And rather than trying to make all of these things happen, like to make myself hit this goal, like make these people do these things at the studio so that the goal gets hit, right? Instead, I've switched gears to lay out what I desire, share that, with the Lord, the universe, wherever you are spiritually. And then you wait, and you wait for the pieces to fall into place. I want you to shh your masculine energy and tap into your feminine energy. Okay, that doesn't mean get rid of. Okay, if you're driven and you're a go-getter, you have that masculine energy. It's good for us. It's all good for women of of power and goals and drive and all of that. But I want you to think about that as you go through this week. Okay, I want you to think about what that looks like for you in this situation that you've been thinking about since we've been together in our time today. Here is your homework. I want you to write down what is before you. What is it that with a pile of hay, that we talked about that is in front of you, what is it that is inside of there? What is your pile of hay? What is your pile of all these things? Again, is it goals that you want to achieve? Is it stuff from the past that you're like, man, I thought I let it go, but I really didn't? Is it a relationship that you're really working through? Is it your marriage? Is it being a mother? Is it that you just want to grow? What is it that's standing before you this year that we need to jumpstart and move through, that we need to close our eyes, dig our arms into, and find those safety pins within the hay? I want you to write it down. I want you to share it in the group. And I want you to share it with me, whether you share it publicly in the group or just private message me in the group, is totally fine. But I want you to share it with me so that we can work through those things as we travel through this next 8 weeks. Yeah. So number one in our workbook is acknowledging. Okay. Spend some time this week acknowledging. Maybe there are some things that you need to accept as you go through this journey in the next week. Let's talk about them in the group. I run into things all the time. Okay. It can be little things. So you've got kind of like these big things that we'll talk about, maybe in the group, but I want you to think about like accepting just anything. It could be like that your day went sideways and you don't want to accept it. Like I'm so structured and I just don't like it when something gets off track for my day. And sometimes I have to go, okay, like, old Amy, I would like have a bunch of anxiety. I would freak out. I would actually get really mad. And then I would probably take it out on somebody else that was in my life. And new Amy is, okay, I'm going to accept that this is how it is. This is the space I'm in. This is what's happening. Let me see if I can take a different direction here and what I can still get done in my day because X happened. If you're driving and you need to accept that there's traffic, oh my gosh, traffic is like, I can't deal. I just can't deal, but I have to accept it. Right. And I'm like, okay, how about this is okay. I'm going to find the lesson. I'm not going to like press against the resistance, but I'm going to find the lesson. I mean, you guys know that you can't work on patience unless you're given situations to work on patience, right? You can't work on letting go if you're not given a situation of something that doesn't call you to let go. You can't work on being a mom unless your kid drives you crazy and you work on all the things that you want to be a strong mother, right? You can't work on that. You can't work on having a stronger marriage if things don't set themselves before you. You know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of walking through life and accepting that. It's, again, stop focusing on the resistance and instead find the lesson. Okay, why is this happening to me? Why am I sitting in traffic? Okay, prompt. I'm going to listen to this podcast that I've been complaining about that I couldn't listen to because I don't have the time. Ding, ding, ding. There it is. There's my lesson. I worked on patience. Patience always calls me to work on them. So anytime I see it now, I accept, I find the lesson, and I get there. What are those things in your life? Work on that as you move through the next 7 days before we meet again next Thursday.